Yeah. I don't know.
All right, it is 6:30. We'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
East Ward Alderman John Quinn.
Here.
East Ward Alderman J.C. Cunningham.
Here.
Mayor Natalie McNish.
Here.
West Ward Alderman Robert Boggs.
Here.
West Ward Alderman Stacy Lee.
Here. If you would please stand for a moment of silent prayer or reflection, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, your packet includes minutes from June 10th meeting. Are there any comments or corrections?
Make a motion to approve.
Okay. Second. Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, next in your packet is expenditures and financial reports. You were also provided a supplemental packet of expenditures. One thing I noted within my review of this was the capital asset plan that was included in here, kind of giving us an update of what growth areas of the budget have had some approval so that we know where we stand. Sam, would it be possible for us to put a future agenda item together on this to explain when we think things are going to move forward, if things are going to move forward on these items that are left outstanding? That way we know what impacts the budget for next year's planning.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns on expenditures and financial reports? If not, I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to approve them.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next item is departmental reports. These are included in your packet. We have a fire department report and a utility user report. Are there any questions or comments on these items? Hearing none, we'll go to committee, boards, and commission reports. I'd like to start by asking Mark, would you present on Parks and Tree City?
Yes, absolutely. Let me start with Tree City. Tree City is taking a hiatus for the summer, as they normally do. They ended with a report on the trees in the park. They went through and did an inventory and marked all of the dead trees. Recently, several of those trees, some of the bigger, more problematic trees have actually been removed in the last couple of weeks. So city crews have been out there taking care of some of that in conjunction with some of the fair ongoings and taking advantage of some opportunities there. So that was good. They'll reconvene after the summer's over this fall and start talking about the yearly reports and getting ready to be recognized as a Tree City again for 2021. As far as the parks go, we are knee deep in all kinds of programming. We've got our baseball, softball, t-ball, and our brand new program, Little Sluggers, is going with, and that Little Sluggers program's got 2- and 3-year-olds out there on the field, and they are having a great time. Got some pictures and got to see them in action a little bit, and it's really neat. But we had over 300 sign up for our youth ball program, and 126 of those, I think, were t-ball alone. So we've kind of got, there's a lot of baseball in this town, but for the littles, we've kind of got the market cornered on the littles, and it's great to see them coming up through our programs. We had a new load of dirt that we got put on Lund Field, and street crew got that all spread out, and we got the bases repositioned, and the fields are looking really good. So it's neat. Now all 3 fields have new dirt on, the good dirt. So that's great. Things are going well there. The pool, anytime that it's hot and it's sunny that means big numbers for the pool. So the pool has been really, really busy. We've been going through concessions items like crazy, and the pool has been extremely busy in this heat streak, this hot streak that we've been going through. A couple of challenges. We have had a couple of hurdles and a few challenges. I don't know if you know or not, but we have a motor that is down, a pump motor for the open flume slide, and we're currently getting that looked into. We're on that and should have that motor back pretty soon. Hopefully we get that slide up and running here in about a week or so. And we've had some complex manager change and switch over. There was a fit that just wasn't good, so we've been scrambling in that position. But the nice thing is, now that we've been open for a couple of years, we've built up some people who've been here for a few years. They're able to shoulder the load a little bit as a team. It's really neat to be able to do that and see some of the younger people step up and take some more responsibility. But things are going really well out there at the pool as well. We're gearing up for another new program. We've got a 3-on-3 outdoor basketball league that we're going to start in August, and we're putting the pieces together for that. I just ordered the stencil kit for the court out here at Rotary, and so we're excited about that program as well.
And Mayor, I'd like to take an opportunity. I had a citizen reach out to me. This man has owned and operated a private ball complex, not in this town, but in Stratford, for many, many years. And he just wanted the board to know how impressed he was with the state that our ballparks were in this year, and that he was just so pleased to see the level of improvement in our fields this year. So
Awesome.
good job.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mark from the board?
And if you haven't seen the little sluggers,
Oh, it's adorable.
it's the best.
It
It's
is.
worth driving up there.
Yeah, that'll turn any day.
Yeah.
Finance and cemetery will both begin meeting in July. That this is normal for just how they are structured and when they normally start their business. So both of them will start having reports hopefully in July. The other item that we have is planning and zoning. So our Planning and Zoning Commission approved a site plan and conditional use permit for the school's early childhood education center. And then we also recommended approval for for variances and a final plat on the bus barn, Joyner property. And we discussed some sidewalks and parking. Robbie, is there anything you want to add to that from the meeting?
This will be one of the first times we've done variances in the near future. And so we're going to have to look at that situation. Planning and zoning did recommend to approve that, but there's a variance that would be requested for where the Joiner's school bus, where they park all their school buses and work on them. And then their daughter-in-law runs a salon in a little cubby there. And so they're wanting a variance to where they can still keep operating that. And we're going to have to look at that on the city side to make sure we protect it in the future. It doesn't get into something that we as the city don't want. So I know the board is going to be looking at that pretty soon in the next week, 2 weeks, I guess. So.
Okay, so information should be coming out from Sam pretty soon
Yeah, so
on
at
it.
your next meeting, we've actually got public hearings, and you'll actually, so Robbie's right, we haven't had a variance in some time, but there's actually 9 coming before you at the next meeting. There's 3 different properties with 3 different variances on each property. So it's not that there's that many properties out there with it, but everybody is obviously the Joiner property is one of those. It's an enterprise where they're selling to another entity, but some of these other ones, and I think it'll be more common as we move forward, just because everybody's trying to take advantage of these lots and trying to develop lots and trying to bust things up to where they can conform. But yeah, Robbie's right. The Joiner property it's all I-1, which makes it a little bit more difficult. There's a density requirement there in I-1. And it just leaves a challenge if that is the way that they're proposing to do it. If it ever ceases to be that business, it would create a lot that doesn't meet the density requirements, that really doesn't make any sense for anyone other than the new property owner to own. And so something you guys will have to take into consideration when we get to the next meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much. And then last but certainly not least is Grow Marshfield. Dwayne?
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Kind of, I got more questions than I do answers right now, folks, but at least we're still heading in the right direction. We're still moving forward. And some things coming up this next month, I think, is going to start bringing the whole picture together, and hopefully by the end of the year. It has been active. I'm working 3 projects right now. So one of them's looking very, very promising. Another one is very speculative. I've met all the investors and they're all together, but don't know if they've really got the project down. So I'm sorry to be a little bit vague, but that's the nature of this business. The third one, I don't have a whole lot of information about at this point. I won't be meeting with them until next week. So, but it is another project. So we've got that. On the RFI side, we've submitted 2 RFIs on some 2 projects. They're low water and sewer users, so we're pretty safe about doing that. But because of MDL's effort and getting the options in place, it's very secure for us to be able to submit these RFIs and say, yep, we've got an opportunity for you to come in, and they've got a set price if they want to take advantage of it. So if it makes sense. So that's very encouraging. Like I said, I think in the next month or so, we're going to get as you know, the information on the infrastructure. And when that starts coming through, then we'll take that data and start putting into the big picture about why Marshfield's a great place to bring your business and why we can grow here. So same challenges that we've been having, as you know, and you hear about it all the time, and it's housing and workforce. So we'll keep plugging along on those, and hopefully we can start addressing those. The other, I think also is going to happen, I know, of course, is the land use committee that you've talked about, and I'll try to talk to you afterwards. I got one little thing on that, but anyway, once that's done, and I bring that up only because I've had a couple business owners come to me and said, when are you going to start doing those type of things? And I try not to be as blunt, but we say we don't want to spur 2.0. We want something a little bit different up there at the CC Highway, and so they're looking forward to the land use committee getting started. So I'm just want to let you know that I'm hearing that from the businesses as well. So I know we've talked. You probably already know about the change going in at the school, and there's a reception. When's the reception for David? On Monday?
I believe.
Yeah, Monday, I think it's 4:30 to 6:30 or something like that, right there. So hopefully, and I'd like to publicly, say, David has done a great job in the area of workforce and education for us. And he's really established a foundation for us, to really grow from here. And I think Mike's going to, take that to the next level. So if you get a chance to do that. You want to say something about the ribbon cutting coming up?
Oh, on Saturday, June 26th, there's a ribbon cutting at Zimmerman's Meats. So it's their grand opening from 9 to 1. They'll be doing samples, giving away prizes, and then we'll have a ribbon cutting at 10:30 a.m.
10:30.
All right.
Do you have any questions for me or Casey on? Yeah.
The LMI, where are we at on that?
We're about to do the 3rd mailing. I think the note we got was it got messed up, to be honest. Somehow it was either the printing or the mailing. And so I don't,
They ordered their envelope machine quit on them, and they had to order a new one, and then shipping delays, it got pushed back a week. So
Understand?
so, but
That's okay.
yeah,
We're still moving.
We're still,
That's
yeah,
all I
and
want to
I
hear. We're
think
still
with
moving.
this, did you comment?
Uh-uh.
Oh, okay. With this incentive and thing, I think, we'll get it. So, but
Okay.
we're gonna be really ready to go, but that's where that's at. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate that. Okay.
Awesome. Any questions for Dwayne?
All right.
Thank
So
you so
hopefully
much.
we'll see you at the ribbon cutting or something, or the reception. Thank you.
Absolutely. And then we get started for business today. I wanted to address the employee service awards. So myself and I can speak for several members of the board, previous and the current board, have been focused on making sure our employees are appreciated. And while I hope those of you that are in the room know that, I'm going to go through this so that the citizens, if they do happen to watch this later on, will know kind of what's going on. But so the last time employee service awards were completed were in 2017. So we're a little bit behind, and our board really wanted to make sure we got that caught up, and not only caught up, but did a better job of it. So we're holding an employee appreciation event that is a private event just for our employees and their families this Sunday, I hope, rain permitting. We currently have 38 city employees. Between all 38 of them, as of the end of this month, we have 279 combined years of service to the city of Marshfield. And we have many employees who, during those last couple of years, which have been very, very busy, very trying, very stretched years, have reached service milestones that we're going to acknowledge. So some of those that I want to mention, we will be acknowledging for 5 years of service, Monica Robinson, Toby Marlin, Melanie Brown. For 10 years of service, Sean Strain, Josh Burris, Richard Neal, Joe Taylor, and Trevor Hathcock. For 15 years of service, Doug Fannin, Julie Ricky. And for 20 years of service, Sam Roast and Karen Roast. And then in addition to that, we wanted to shift our acknowledgement of our police officers from just their years of service to Marshfield to include their total years of law enforcement service, which is how that industry, how police departments acknowledge service in their units. So we currently have 12 police officers. Okay. Of our 12 police officers combined, we have 160 years of law enforcement experience, which speaks volumes, right, to why we have the department that we do. So we will also be acknowledging, and we're going to be issuing commendation bars when they get here, but we will be issuing commendation bars, which gives a star for every 5 years. So we will be giving 2 stars to Eric Peterson and Brian Chisholm, 3 stars to Josh Burris, 4 stars to Richard Neal and Joe Taylor, and 5 stars to Chief Doug Fannin. So hopefully we will have pictures to share and whatever else, but we look forward to the event, and we do have a rain out date already scheduled, just in case. All right, unfinished business. We'll start with a COVID update. Michael Taylor cannot be here tonight, so you're going to get to listen to me. But I am very fortunate that I receive a lot of communication from our task force, from our various committees, and that I get to sit on several of the action committees at the university. And I feel like I'm pretty in touch with most of this information. But when it comes to curveball questions that are really about health, I know I'm out of my league. And so tonight we have Scott Allen with us from the health unit. And if you have questions as we go along in this discussion, I really encourage you to reach out and ask. It's just one of those areas where I know enough to be dangerous. So we have definitely had a spike in COVID cases in Webster County and in the state of Missouri. They held a joint meeting of the Webster County COVID-19 Task Force and the Advisory Committee, which is the first time that occurred. So great to see. Those members basically agreed and participated in a press conference on June 21st, trying to promote vaccination and just advising the public on the COVID-19 situation here in town. So there's a report in your packet, and I'm going to skip all the way to the back of it. Based on that June 21 information, we had 156 active cases in Webster County. And of those, 23 are hospitalized. If you just segregate that down to Marshfield, we had 76 of the 156 cases are in Marshfield. Only 21 of those are related to congregate living. Okay. Our watershed data is showing, and I think we've even done some additional testing, haven't we, on some of our positive? So we are showing that, that we have the Delta variant, which is also known as the India variant here in Webster County. To kind of give you a little idea on that, the state of Missouri issued a press release on this today. So COVID transmitted faster than the flu. And we learned that by watching it go. It was more contagious, right? The UK variant that we all heard about, when it got here, it transmitted faster than that. Well, the Delta or the India variant is even faster than that. So when it comes to contagious to transmission rates, this particular strain is much more contagious. The symptoms seem to be more severe. The hospital rates are increasing related to that. And it's one of those things that, you know, at this point we inform, right? This is the data that we have available to us at this time, and kind of go from there. Is there any questions on this particular topic for myself or for Scott?
Is there any data on people that have been vaccinated on what their contagious rate is?
I can tell you anecdotally, part of the problem is that we just started collecting data. When we get a positive case, we're asking, have you been vaccinated? Were you fully vaccinated? How long ago were you vaccinated? So we're trying to hone in on some of that information.
Okay.
Not every health department in the state is doing that. I can tell you anecdotally, we're seeing more and more folks who have been fully vaccinated that are coming down with this. We just recently entered into an agreement with the state. So we can now, when we do that testing, we actually have state testing kits available. So we do a swab and with their kit, send it up to the state lab, and they can actually run the test on it to see what variant it is. And to your sewer shed comment, we're the last sampling, we're getting even more elevated. This one though was 60% Delta, 40% Alpha, which is the UK variant. So it's still active in the community.
That's very interesting.
Okay. Any other questions? Scott, I sure appreciate you being here.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. With that, we will go to the transportation plan update. Sam?
In your packet, I've asked Jason and Shoria to be here tonight with SIMCOG. SIMCOG is the Southwest Missouri Council of Governments, which we're partners with, and we're members of that. And so they're a regional planning partner that I attend meetings with them, and I sit on a TAC committee, which actually kind of prioritizes some projects for the 10 county region. And so as you know, our transportation plan is a little bit outdated. So back in 08, 09, we had Olson and Associates do a comprehensive plan. From that plan, the only thing that was actually ever adopted was the transportation portion of it, just because there were some projects that we needed to move forward and that we wanted to move forward, and so we needed that piece of the puzzle. Since then, we went through our growth plan, which we have completed and adopted. This will eventually, once it's completed and adopted, it will go into our growth plan and just be part of the growth plan. But there's some really good information that we need to capture and that we need to update in order to be eligible for the next round of government funding and to really to be prepared for that. And so with that, I'll kind of turn that over to Jason and to Ashoria to break down the proposal that's in your packet.
Yeah, hi, good evening. As Sam mentioned, I'm Jason Ray, Executive Director of SIMCOG, Southwest Missouri Council of Governments. We're our 10 County Regional Planning Commission. We're also the federally designated economic development district for the 10 counties. We've got a long history working with the City of Marshfield. Back in 2017, we did a housing inventory, which won a National Innovation Award. In 2018, we did a sidewalk inventory. And then we also played a small part in the planning of the new interchange project. So we've got lots of projects that we worked with the city, and then also with Grow Marshfield, and exploring what economic development opportunities and transportation needs exist for existing industry or new prospective projects as well. So the proposal that we've put forward is based off of conversations that we've had with Sam and your kind of contract planner, Scott Hansen. We think that it'll meet the city's needs. Since we are a quasi-governmental agency, we can offer our services at either free or reduced cost. You'll also see in the proposal that we're leveraging a transportation planning grant that we receive annually through MoDOT to help offset a portion of the expenses as well. I don't know if you want me to run through the actual proposal and talk about some of the tasks that we anticipate.
I think I probably would, yeah.
So of course, task A is just our project initiation and management. We've already done a lot of data collection, reviewing the growth plan as well as your previous or current transportation plan, but kicking that off and managing the project overall and administrating it and communicating with city staff and having an orientation meeting. Task B kind of outlines our public outreach efforts. We'll use an advisory committee throughout the planning process, use them to help conduct a community survey to identify transportation needs and kind of desires, particularly problem intersections or sidewalk, trail needs, items like that. We'll work with that advisory committee and city staff throughout the process of the plan. And then getting into the information gathering, again, we've already kind of started that process in just putting together the proposal, but you can see kind of bullet pointed here what types of transportation and modes we'll look at. It's pretty much everything, including road, traffic volume. We can do traffic counts as needed, rail infrastructure, alternative transportation, so bike ped needs, crash data and safety data as well. We've also had conversations already about the development process and what's included or not included regarding sidewalks and how we might be able to take a look at some other codes or some code improvements that could help that process a little bit in the development process again. And then we'll draft the transportation plan and then present the final product to you all for consideration. We'll do a public open house so that the public has plenty of opportunity to weigh in on the plan itself and the goals and objectives that we identify. Below that is kind of the process of how we will execute or complete these tasks. And then at the very end of the proposal, we've got kind of the cost breakout. The final thing on here is an additional outreach option. This is something that we like to kind of offer to communities above and beyond the basic planning process and those public open house and public hearings and community surveys, but doing a website, either static or interactive. I think here we've proposed doing both. So being really transparent about the planning process for the transportation plan, but also creating a story map. We had a lot of success with the City of Ozark when we did their comprehensive plan update. We did an interactive story map where anybody can go on to the website, see what the planning process looks like, what we've done, any meeting minutes or notes that we took from advisory committee meetings, any issues of concerns that have been brought forth throughout the planning process to that point. And then you could also interact with a map and kind of map your own transportation needs. So basically put a pin or even draw a line and add a public comment about what citizens or folks are experiencing in your transportation network and what they would like to see. So then we can incorporate that into our final report and again, the final feedback. And then we can also convert that into the transportation plan itself, being that online interactive, we call story map. So you'll scroll through. On one side, it'll be basically goals and objectives or an explanation of the transportation network and what we're trying to accomplish, and then an interactive map that can populate with that and change as you kind of scroll through. It's a really cool feature. It's actually fairly easy for our staff to put together, but it is a really nice, effective tool. And it's a lot more user-friendly than just kind of a PDF or a printed document for somebody to flip through. You can really zoom in on your neighborhood and see what the city or the advisory committee was recommending for the transportation network that really impacts you the most. So that was added as kind of an optional outreach that we can add to that I think the city staff was kind of recommending that you might go with. So happy to answer any questions that you might have about the proposal, about who we are and what we've done. Ishwarya is kind of our go-to regional transportation planner. But she's not used to making these formal pitches, so she's here to observe and take notes.
And just so you guys know, so this is just a presentation of the proposal. We're not actually asking you to approve this tonight. Staff's recommendation is going to be that we do approve it and that we do move forward with it. But from here, this is a good opportunity for you all to get any questions that you might have out there. If you have anything else that you want looked at or added to the scope or taken away from the scope, and then they'll take that back and they'll actually get us over a formal contract, which then will come back to you guys in the form of an ordinance to approve that contract. So.
We had talked about crosswalks and stop signs and stuff around the pool area and along Hubble. Will this plan address those specific concerns?
So let me tell you how I think this will play out, and then Jason, you go into that. So I think it will address areas of concern and what that could look like. Now, I don't think this isn't going to get down into the weeds as far as does this intersection warrant a stop sign? Does this intersection warrant this and that? Because there are certain other studies that go into that, but it'll be more of a high level of this is what would be this is what could be considered. But then I think that's a whole nother ball game to get into those warrant studies. You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Right, you're absolutely right. And we can get closer to that point again with those traffic counts. We can look at any problem areas that surface, or if we see a high priority need, we can take a closer look at that to have a little bit more of a detailed recommendation in the plan. And then kind of that would be the next stepping point of taking that.
Okay.
You know.
Was this something that we asked Mel already to look at? Had we already
That was
fielded
the
this
warrant
one?
studies, I thought.
The warrant.
The warrant
The
study.
warrant studies we have,
Okay.
not this transportation
Right.
update, but yes,
Is this budgeted?
this is not budgeted. No, this is not budgeted.
And is staff recommending the interactive story map and
I think so. I think so, just because I think that, I think by doing so, and Dwayne can testify to this too. I mean, when people call anymore, they really don't want to call. They want to know where they can go to do this and figure this out on their own, and they want to see that. And we're going to be, Mark's working diligently to work through some RFQs that we've got for websites. And so if we could get this thing up and going and people can track that, they really don't want to call and talk to me. They don't want to call and talk to Mark or to Dwayne. They really want to figure some of this stuff out on their own and see what we're doing, how prepared we are. And it's little things like that that kind of set us apart or set a community apart, whether you're doing that or whether you have to get a plan that's on the shelf that, may or may not have a shelf life, but nobody really wants to flip through this. They want to get to the cool features and they want to see, if they scroll in, they want to be able to pull up and see, this is what somebody's recommended. This is what we're looking at. And so, obviously it's a good question. It's not budgeted, but we would be looking at doing this, probably pulling this out of the transportation fund, which there's a positive cash balance there. But Jason and I talked about this a little bit. I don't know what the timing would be and how that billing would actually be when this plan would actually come to fruition. Do you have an expectation of?
Yeah, so
timeline?
just depending on when you all wanted to start, we kind of outlined this in a 9-month process. We kind of gave ourselves some room just in case, because we know things happen during that process. So we might be able to knock it out a little bit quicker than that. So that's what we proposed. And then we offer very flexible kind of payment arrangements. Some communities need to get it in a certain fiscal year, and we completely understand that.
And I thought that's what we talked about. I just didn't want to put words in mouth. So basically, we could sign the agreement and they could basically hold that, and we could put a placeholder in that for 2022. And then obviously, if that's how our budget fell, we could start either pay it all up front in 2022 or pay what is owed in 2022 as far as our approved budget. So, but we would definitely need to be, if we sign it, to have a placeholder in there for the 22 budget.
And this came up because we had an opportunity to leverage some MoDOT changes, and they needed this plan. This plan was barely in date when the contract went in place for the interchange, and it is now out of date. So it disqualified us from those particular conversations. In order to get us back in the game to where we can try to leverage more of those state dollars, not only do we need this plan for us to figure out what we're doing and where we're going with our dollars, but we do have to have this in order to leverage those other dollars.
And when it comes to, let's just say the third interchange, right? When we get to a point and we're closer to that, there are certain, and it's just the way the government is, right? There are certain studies, there are certain information that even if you don't feel like you need it, you just have to have it in order to even be at the table. And so this is a piece of that puzzle. So.
Will this also help on like, subdivisions that are hopefully coming soon on the transportation, like numbers of extra cars we could see on those roads? Maybe not.
I don't know that it'd get into
Yeah,
that detail.
probably not for new development. I mean,
If we knew specifics that
Yeah.
something was coming, we could look at those areas. If we knew about how many lots were possible in there, then I'm sure that we put that in there, but I don't know that it's going to get down into.
Okay, I just wasn't sure on the transportation if it gave us numbers of expected growth that we could take as far as.
yeah, so, you contract with CMT, they've got a traffic engineering manual and we have access to older versions of it. So you can kind of plug into the formulas that are outlined in that engineering manual and crank out some pretty rough numbers that you could expect. And that's for any type of land use. And you can plug in density numbers and things like that and generate a model fairly quickly. So with our partnership, we expect to work pretty closely with Scott at CMT, and we'd be able to get that information if needed.
Okay, cool.
The planned survey, how would your organization plan to do that?
We would consult with the community and see what the best method is. Sometimes there's a very vocal Facebook group that is a great avenue to distribute things.
Does seem to be a Facebook community, yes.
And other times, we do paper surveys. We've we've got every address in town because we've done mailings and that residential inventory. So we can do either method that you feel that the advisory committee or the city feels it would be more effective. We also do some targeted outreach. So, the senior center will figure out what day is fried chicken day, and we'll go and sit down and maybe talk to some seniors with that survey, or, some other maybe community sports events, and try to kind of target stakeholder groups that way.
And how is the advisory committee composed? Who makes up the advisory committee?
We would give some suggestions of what types of folks should be on that. But names and individuals would be recommended by probably city staff or you all.
Probably city staff. Okay. Any other questions on this item? Thank you for being here.
You bet.
We
Absolutely.
sure appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.
Yep.
Sam, are you looking for any specific input from the board on which direction they think they should go with or without the scoreboard?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not right. So it's not on there. Like I said, it's not on there for a decision tonight, but obviously, yes, I'd like to have maybe a consensus or something of what you guys feel. That way I can work with Jason to make sure that is in the contract that comes back.
Okay, so I'll open up for comment. Alderman Lee?
I agree with city staff. I would like to see the whole package, the storyboard and interactive, the whole 9 yards.
Okay, Alderman Cunningham?
I agree. That's a good deal.
Alderman Boggs?
I'd agree with staff.
Alderman Quinn?
Same with me.
Okay, thank you very much. That will bring us to current leaf dump closure and future site and service discussion. And I'll lead the discussion here and then let everybody have input from there. So since we had this discussion, I have received comment from various individuals in the city, and even individuals who have lawn mowing type businesses and such. Overall, I think all of the comments I have received are in favor of the fact that it doesn't go with the park, but there needs to be the service. That is the caveat. They agree with that's not the location. They agree with it's getting out of hand. It gets out of hand as soon as we clean it up. It's a mess in about a week. So they're totally in agreement with that. But all of them said that they need this service, right? And I have relayed the input kind of as I get it to Sam, and city staff do have a work in progress plan to discuss. But first, we wanted to get whatever input you had from citizens or individuals that you've reached out with. So I'll just go down the line. Alderman Cunningham?
Well, I understand, the mess they have down there, but we do need something by fall. So that's just where I stand.
Okay,
Because I use it.
right. Alderman Boggs?
Same thing. I've reached out to a couple companies that do that and some private residents, and they all agree the same thing as far as it is a mess. It needs to be handled probably differently. We do need to figure out a way to make sure that we do offer that.
Okay. Alderman Quinn?
I'd agree with what Robbie just said. Does the commercial usage, do we have a fee for that? Or is that just a free service as well?
We don't, because we don't have anybody to man the site based on how it's currently set up. That is definitely something that comes into play as we try to control this service that we're offering.
It seems like that might be something we'd want to look into in the future planning.
Some notes. Sorry, Stacy. Alderman Lee?
I agree with what John said. It's a service that we need. It's a service that I think our citizens expect. I think it's a service that, to get it to the level that it's maintainable long-term, they're going to have to pay for it. I think there needs to be a different rate for a citizen cleaning up your yard than a mowing service taking 15 yards of leaves. And
Right.
I think that needs to be in, requires a city employee, and maybe we add one.
Okay. So if there's any other discussion, I'll turn it over to Sam.
So I visited with some other local city administrators in the area just to kind of reach out and see what they do. I had done this several years ago, and so I reached out to a few different ones, and I actually went and visited with them a little bit. And the biggest thing that they said is control. If you cannot control it, they kind of used to operate the same way that we do. And they said, if you cannot control it, you will never get it under control. So Mark mentioned that we took advantage of getting rid of some dead trees through certain avenues this week. And so we were able to clean up the top of it in a much more expedient manner than what we normally would and much less labor intensive. And so we cleaned that up. I think the guys finished that on a Thursday afternoon or a Friday. I didn't check it on the weekend, but by Monday morning, you could go down there today and there's already carpet and remnants down there. There's a flat screen TV down there. There's tires down there, and it's a clean open site. It's not like it's buried within the trash. And then there's also the limbs and everything. So I think through a couple different avenues, I think we've had, I think we have a real opportunity with coming up that we might be able to take advantage of for the limbs. It's too premature to really get into too much discussion on that yet, because I don't know that it will come to fruition. So we may still be offering, may have to still offer the curbside limb service. But I do think that there may be an opportunity there for the leaves as well. However, we do own some land out north of town. And I was out there this week, and I kind of looked it over and stomped some of it out. And I think that with some minor improvements to the roadway, getting into it to accommodate, right now it's just a single lane going down through there. So with a ditch and a fence on one side, and pretty tight in there. But we would need to do a little bit of improvement there, not only to the road, just in general, to get the general public in there. But that way, if somebody's coming and going at the same time, they have room to pass. But I think that we have an area out there that would work out very well. We would have to spend a little bit of money on it. Like I said, on the road, we'd have to clear out. It's just kind of what we have now. It's in an area that is basically a dip or a holler, and we'd clean it out. And I think that we could accommodate the same type of service for several years. I mean, Richard and I talked, and this site has worked for almost 18 or 19 years. And so I think that this other site would work for several years to come. And I think it would be much better because we'll be able to control it. That being said, it would be for leaves and green waste only. It would not be for the limbs. So I think that we have some, I think to kind of go along with JC's concern, I think that what I'm looking for tonight is for you guys to go ahead and authorize the closure of it, and for us to get something back up and going by this fall. We're actually working through numbers right now. We've got a couple of contractors giving us some prices to do the improvements and do the clearing that I'm talking about. And so it may just be something that we can figure into our current operating budget. But if it's not, then I'll bring that back to you all for your approval at a later date. But by closing it, we'd actually be able to close that off, and Mark and I would work with our city staff to put some type of temporary permanent barriers up for a matter of time, right? Because we're going to have to lock that down fairly quickly after the fair in order to keep people from driving up there. I don't know what that looks like because I don't know, I don't really know what's going to prevent them from just dumping it at the edge of our fence. And so outside of that, I have discussed that with Paul. I've discussed that with the other city administrators as well. And unfortunately, we may have to pass some additional language. I've actually reached out and I talked to Linda as well about what we could and couldn't do. But we're going to have to post the site very well. And then we're going to have to really be strict on the enforcement. And I haven't talked to Doug about this very much, but we're going to have to really be adamant about that and what that may entail. And again, Doug can speak more to this, not to put you on the spot, Doug, but what he might need if we put surveillance up, right? And how we could do that, because it is just so labor intensive to take care of. And at that point, if we've got it posted and they're still doing so, as long as our code book states what is littering, then we can enforce the littering issue. But at that point, if they're coming in there to do it, then they're trespassing as well. And so as long as we have it posted that way, then I would think that we could enforce both of those. Do you disagree with any of that? Is there any questions for me on that? I mean, I guess what I'm asking for tonight is for you guys to take official action to close that down and to close that service down until we have a more permanent solution back in front of you, which will be, if you guys want to put a deadline on it, that's fine. But I fully, it's known that it'll be done by this fall, and I get that. I think it's a service that people do use. Unfortunately, it's just something that people would use.
Could we gate off the entrances from the roadways, which people aren't going to get out of their car at the roadway and carry their flat screen all the way up there?
At the roadways at Garst and Marshall?
At all the entrances, basically.
The problem is that the people that are abusing it yes, you could, and that would keep the honest people honest. But all along Hubble Drive, anybody with a pickup and a trailer can come off of that anywhere, not just that drive. In fact, if you go out of an event, and I do this as myself, right? If I'm in my pickup, I don't wait for the road to be open. I go out there so you're not sitting in traffic the whole time. And so, like I said, it would keep the honest people honest, but it's not going to keep people with trucks.
Surveillance is going to have to be what's happening.
Yeah, but we've been down this road too, and if you, one, you have to be able to see their license plate. Two, you have to be able to see that person, right? It's not I could borrow your truck and I could go do it, and we can't. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be able to ID that, and so then you get into a lighting issue, and then if they dump it in this spot, you can see them, but if they dump it in this spot, you can't. And so I don't disagree that, we need to look at the surveillance stuff. And Mark and I know I've met with Jason Russ with Federal Protection, and he had actually given us a quote down there, but you'd have to surveil the whole thing. And I just don't know. I think if we get that distance out there far enough and the word gets out, and if we can be active enough on up front, and if we can enforce that up front, not to say to penalize them to the point where we make a point, but I think if we set that up front, that listen, it is not allowed and we're not going to tolerate it. And if we can jump on top of that, then I think that's our only real hope in order to be successful at that. I think that once we close that and we start covering it up with dirt, that's not a site anymore. Mark's working through still with the Frisbee golf stuff. And so we're going to be looking at that, and they're going to be looking at land use for that. So we can get that improved. It's not the dump site that it looks like right now. Because right now, if you didn't know any better, that's what it looks like.
What is our definition of fall?
Of what?
Fall. When does this need
When
to
the
be
leaves
open?
start falling.
Well, I get that. You want to
It gets dry.
put a pin in that, but
I'd like to see the new one open by October 1st. Is that doable?
Because if it gets dry, the leaves start falling. Would
I think so.
a recycling center help on some of this? Like TVs and mattresses and stuff like that? I mean, we don't have recycling anymore.
They're closed down now, aren't they?
Right.
Yeah, they won't.
Would
And
that
I don't think they, so I think, I think they
was
would,
asking about that.
Yeah, I don't-
Another recycling center.
so I don't think that I don't think it would, because like the TVs, I think you can still take the TVs out there, but I think you have to pay for it.
Right, yeah.
So I don't think so. Obviously the tires is just that's a common issue all the time, but yeah, I think October 1st. I mean, I think October 1st, October 15th, somewhere in there. That's gonna be right in our paving schedule. So I mean, I think if we say October, and I get it, we want it open before the leaves start falling. So, I mean, my intent would be to have it done prior to that.
Right.
But we do have several.
And
other
maybe it would
projects
help
going.
with the community education if they knew on this date, coming this fall, you're not just,
Knowing that they're gonna have somewhere.
we're not going to set Marshfield on fire to burn our leaves. We're going to have a place to go.
I'll know way more about timing and possibilities, what we can and can't do whenever I get the prices back on this clearing. It is very thick where I'm talking about putting this, but it is a real opportunity to do that. And this other opportunity that I'm talking about, it could be a real game changer if everything comes to fruition. But I won't know anything about it for probably another couple months. Probably.
Sam, this new site, is it going to be able to be controlled easily enough?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so that is the thing, right? So when we open it back up, it is going to be able to be controlled, but that's one thing that we haven't talked about. We have been able to put on some part-time employees for this and that, but by moving this direction, we're going to have to decide, when is it going to be open? What does that look like? What are the hours of operation? Because we're going to have to staff it, and where we're going with it, there is no staff there. And so, we're going to have to, we'll need to have those discussions. Are we going to charge a fee? Are we going to charge a fee for commercial use? I absolutely think that we should for commercial use. They're doing that for profit.
Yep.
So if they need to figure that into their price, then they need to figure that into their price. It's not necessarily it's not necessarily our issue for them to be bringing that stuff from out of town in town. I don't think that it is going to be a county-wide. I think that they're going to have to show their proof of residency and this and that. So I think that there's all sorts of things by going to a controlled system. You guys are going to have to set some parameters from that, which we can absolutely set some preferences or give you guys some examples, but we're going to have some real conversations of what that looks like. And are we going to charge everybody a little fee, or are we not going to charge anybody anything, or just commercial? So, but we are going to have to staff it, which is going to be cost.
Well, and I think for it to be effective, it's going to have to be community friendly. And if you're working 40 hours a week, you're not going to do your yard on a Tuesday afternoon.
Mhm.
You need to be able to go out there Saturday afternoon or Sunday after church or till 6 o'clock on Tuesday, or it's not going to be a normal schedule for whoever.
Sure. And so therein lies another issue, right? Is that I know it's talked about everywhere, and we're experiencing the same thing, but workforce. So finding that person or persons that will come and do it, not going to be an easy task either. So I would say that it'll be open as long as we can staff it. I would not want the understanding to be that we're going to staff it. It's going to be open at this time, and our full-time employees are responsible for that. Even if we were fully staffed, that would be a stretch. That being said, I think we could find some part-time people that would be, because we're not asking them to do real strenuous labor out there. Most of where we would do it, as long as they don't find a way around it to abuse it, most of it is going to be just paperwork and checking, and somebody physically being there to make sure that they take their bags with them, their trash with them. They're not bringing limbs and trailer loads of crap in there that doesn't need to be there. So there's several logistics to be worked out between that.
How long do we think that might need to stay open for cleaning up the leaves and, is that like mostly done by November,
December at least.
December?
I know the guys that do my backyard come right before.
Yeah, I think we're
Thanksgiving.
looking at 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah. So, but then they have to pay.
Okay, so this is what I have noted, and then I'm going to go through and ask for any additional comments. I have that we need to figure out the staffing, the hours of operation, the fee structure, the guidelines. And then do we also need to discuss something on the current site, the penalty or anything, or is that already taken care of with Linda?
Basically, the ticket's gonna be written and we can set a fine in municipal court.
Okay, so that'll go with the court's schedule of fees. Okay, so we don't actually set that. That's the judge, prosecuting attorney.
Right.
They handle that.
And when I talk to her, unless you guys want to impose, unless you guys want to set a special fee for that.
Court cost alone will be, $34.50. So I mean, if somebody got hit with one of these on the first offense and you just said, I'm going to give you a suspended sentence and charge you court costs, I mean, hitting somebody with about $35 in court costs is going to be probably a fairly significant penalty for what they thought was a free dump.
And I think the trespassing goes on up much more significant. Right? I think the trespassing goes on up to like $500.
Yeah.
So if we
Yeah,
put on.
they
there,
have
it's
leeway to
trespassing.
use their judgment as they should. That's what they're hired for. Okay, additional comments, Alderman Boggs.
No.
Alderman Quinn?
No, other than, you're going to be taking care of how it's going to be controlled and all those details.
Yeah, we'll have to, I didn't overly look at that because I wanted to make sure that you guys were on board with this. But yeah, that will be something we'll really have to look at.
That's it.
Alderman Lee?
Do you have temporary permanent fencing, or is that going to be a
No, we'll have to-
budgetary?
We'll have to purchase it. I really don't know how we're going to do that. We have some exterior fences around it that basically have posts and cables strung through there. And we'll have to, got to be careful with those because, stringing those in between there, somebody drives through there and they can't see it. That's a whole nother issue, but I don't know. I don't know. We don't have any money budgeted for that, but I'm not going to say that would constitute us to be over budget. Right? I'm not going to say that would necessarily trigger a budget amendment. So I need to look and see what those temporary fences might look like and what we might be able to do. And then, if it does rise to a point where I'm not comfortable with it, then, we'll bring that back accordingly.
Alderman Cunningham?
Good.
Okay. Are we taking a vote to close?
I would prefer so because just all transparency. So what I intend on doing is if you guys do this, I'll reach out to Shelby tomorrow with the Marshfield Mail and let her know exactly what is going on and see if she wants to come down and visit, see if she wants to write something up on it. That way there is nothing hidden about this. It is very open and everybody should know exactly what to expect. We will do our best to get signs posted very quickly. I already talked with Trevor Campbell. He said he could turn some around pretty quick if I got him the language. And then obviously we can put something on our Facebook page and all of you can grab it and share it. And I have no intent of this being anything that we're going to catch anybody by surprise on. And so my intent, even if you guys vote tonight, it will probably take us a couple weeks to get it closed down.
I'd make a motion to close the existing site with the understanding that we're intending on opening up a new site come October.
Okay,
Second that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, next up is space needs analysis. So we have the analysis back, but we do not have Joyce back. Joyce is on vacation this week. But this was something that I wanted to kind of preliminarily get in front of you. And I asked Sam to present on what we know and what questions he has so that you can also pitch in with what questions might you have for the architect, designer, whatever her title is. And we can forward those to her and she can have that information when she comes back. So with that, I'll send it to Sam.
Yeah, so I've got their space needs analysis here in a paper form. They send it electronically, but there's quite a bit of information on it, and you really have to move it around to be able to see it. And so they sent me some hard copies. And so basically what they've broken it down into is not a footprint of how it would fit into this building, not a footprint of how it would fit into the building up on the square. But basically if you take department by department, how much space do we have and how much space do we actually need, right? What is ideal? And so I think they've done a very good job of capturing some of that without just taking that and going, well, we just need bigger offices because of this and because of this. There's a few things that I haven't been able to visit with Joyce about. And so a few of those things are going to be, one of the things that we struggle with is whenever, for instance, I'll use Mark and I, whenever we have people come in and they want to sit down and visit, there's not sufficient room always, especially in Mark's office. You guys have hopefully all seen how he's situated in there. So there's really no privacy. There's really no space for him to be able to take people and have one or two, possibly three people sit down at a table, not his desk, but at a table, and be able to discuss things and share things and show things. And so part of that is right now he can overflow into the council room as long as the council room is not being used. If we're fully staffed, then there's obviously no offices available. And so rather than just talking about having a bigger office for that, maybe it's kind of laid out here that, there's this much extra room that is needed. However, if a shareable conference room is available, then maybe that room doesn't have to be quite as big. And so I've got some questions about how she determined the size of that room and what all goes into that, because obviously everything that we are doing now is going electronically, just like in here, right? It's awfully handy to be able to pull people in like what I had in my old office, instead of going, hey, JC, look at this here, right? And be able to go, so this is what we're looking at. And then everybody's focal point is here, and you're not trying to share this screen. So I've got some questions on that. Obviously a thing that keeps coming up is what are we going to do with the court clerk and what does that look like? And so they've got that in there as far as a shared space with the girls up front. They don't really call out for what that space would look like if we made that transition. They say that we would need extra space, but they don't really call out how much extra space if we were to add that person. You guys have seen how Karen and Linda's office is set up. And so it really does work really well. I visited with Karen this week about it, and it really does work out really well for how they're set up. And there's just enough room for them to be able to visit with people. And it works out well for them to be able to kind of hear what's going on with different people coming in and what's going on, because they're always helping each other stuff. But what it doesn't do is it is pretty tight the way that it's laid out right now for their access in and out of their desks. And so Karen's desk is pretty well right along lines with how much desk space she needs. Linda's is quite a bit smaller. And so there's never enough desk space. And so I want to visit with them about that and see exactly how they came up and determined that square footage and that footprint of what they had. Again, back on Mark's side, they've got a very specific size of storage. I don't know if you guys, most of you probably know or may not know, that used to be our police department. So there's a lot of cabinets in there, and they use that for storage and evidence and this and that. So I don't fully know if they're taking that into account and they're using that as part of storage. But basically what we say, they came up with an 8x8, 64 square feet of storage. It's just I really want to know what goes into that number. Like, why 64? How did they come up with that? What did they, because Mark didn't have a whole lot of conversation with them about what would go into that and what they need to have in a controlled environment in the heat and cool. Again, and I could go on and on, but just to kind of give you some information on what I'm looking at. It also called out that as busy as what they are, that they needed probably their own copy room, because a lot of times we're sharing those copiers, and so it gets it gets pretty confusing, right? And certain documents get picked up and here and there. And so from an efficiency standpoint, it even talks about them having their own, but then it doesn't call out any area or growth or space for their own. And so I want to know if that is part of like a future expansion, if that, how does that fit in? Again, we have some unfilled positions. We have our utility superintendent that we really feel like would be beneficial to be inside City Hall, wherever City Hall ends up. It doesn't really line up with the amount of people that he's going to be working with. And so visitors that he's going to have coming in and out, again, is that office space that they've got in here big enough, or does that get accomplished through that shared conference room? And then the overall total square footage, I'm not exactly sure how they've got it drawn. It's hard for me to determine exactly how many square feet they're saying that we need as a whole. And so that's kind of what it's kind of what I want to visit with Joyce about, and that's what I'll be doing over the next couple of weeks. And then I'll have her back here at the next meeting for you all to do a presentation on her space needs analysis.
The question that I've thrown into he has the detailed information, right? But the question that I have thrown in on this is, if you can hold it up real quick. Stacy, you'll be the only one that can have this for reference, but this type of information, to my knowledge, was never provided to the prior board.
No.
So I think that needs to be acknowledged. This, in my question is why? Because I thought we were just updating. So I think that's important here to understand that this is great and this is exactly what we need to make the decisions. And I'm tickled to death to see it. It's an awesome product. And once we get the kinks worked out between the designer and the staff, I think we're really going to have something we can work with, right? But I think it's worth noting that this information wasn't available prior to this. So this will be brand new information. Is there anything that rises to the surface that you say, hey?
Off the top of my head, this is current needs, but in 5 years, are we projecting that in this analysis as well, so that we're kind of a little bit ahead of the game?
So there's some language in there, and that's another thing. I mean, there was 2 or 3 post-its on there that I didn't go over with you, but that's another thing. You know, we talked about another growth for another administrative assistant of some sort. It does call out that, you know, obviously we're gearing up and hopefully at some point ready to build a new activity center.
Mm-hmm.
And so within that, I want to make sure that I understand if they're taking into account exactly that. And when that is done, is the space that we would need called out in this, would that free up the space? And is that enough space for our future growth? Or is that just based off of now? Right. And so I don't know, but that is one of my questions in here is, does that accommodate growth?
Awesome.
And I think it's important to remember this plan does not include the police department. We asked for a space needs analysis for those involved at City Hall here. So this does not include any of the operations of our police department. That is a separate building, separate department, and for all intents and purposes will remain that way.
And I'm sure that they have an answer for all of my questions. I just have not physically been able to sit down with Joyce and discuss this with her. So.
Any additional input? All right. Thank you, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
You're up again with the utility rate study agreement.
Yeah, as you guys know, we went through the selection process for an engineer to do our rate study. We selected by interviews, by scoring. We selected Great River Engineering. And so went back to them and kind of worked out with them and hammered out the kinks in the scope of services. And so that is provided within your packet. We had budgeted $10,000 for the rate study for this year, and it's funny how things work out. It magically comes back that the fee is $10,000, so it is within our budget, and so therefore staff really doesn't have any reason not to recommend to go ahead and move forward with Great River Engineering for the utility rate study. And we are asking for action tonight. We can bring it back if you guys have questions about it, or if you want to change the scope or anything. We are asking for action so that we can get this thing started, so we can hopefully be able to implement some of this into our budget. There's some lead time that goes into it, so it'll be a while before we get all the information back.
I'll make a quick comment and then I'll open it up individually for additional comments or questions. This is a industry issue with rates, and even CU announced yesterday, I believe, that they're going to do a 5% increase this year with additional increases ongoing. Most of it boils down to trying to comply with the Clean Water Act and aging infrastructure. It costs a lot of money to operate utilities, and that price isn't slowing down by any means. We even got notice this week that chlorine may end up in short supply, which most cities use to disinfect their water systems. So there is a concern, and obviously there could be a price point where that particular part of our budget is going to escalate quickly at no control of our staff. So it's never an easy topic to discuss. However, we're not the only ones discussing it. And so I think having this independent, very knowledgeable firm actually do a formal study will give us so much information. And then we'll be able to make the decisions from there as we need to. So I'll open it up from here. Alderman Quinn?
I don't have any questions. I think this is kind of required for us with our cost sharing with different utility.
No, I wouldn't
projects,
say
right?
so. It's a good point. This isn't required. I will say, maybe probably what you're referring to is that utilities, in order for us to borrow money from the state or federal government, we are required, a utility is required to pay for itself. In fact, pay for itself plus. And so we're currently there in the water department-ish, I'll say, because we just borrowed money from the SRF, from the state revolving fund. We're not there on the sewer because we chose a different financing method there, which we didn't have to do a replacement fund. I will say that in the past, we've obviously had to do rate adjustments, but they've been due to deficit, right, and what we couldn't afford, or they've been tied to debt service, what the projects that are coming up. In my time here, we have never done a full-blown rate study from an operational standpoint, including debt service, to see what that needs to be. Now, obviously, the outcome is probably going to be that there's not enough, that we're not charging enough, that we need to do some type of increase. But the happy medium is going to be is how do you get from here to there? And so is that clear enough? Yeah. We're not required to do this.
Right.
If we borrow any money from the state or federal government, then we would be required to pay for ourselves.
Right.
And we did a small form of this only on the water side.
Right.
When we approved the projects.
By us doing this now, what we are saving our citizens is some future project comes along and we need financing that requires the rate study to be done. At that point, in order to secure the financing, we have to change our rate to whatever they tell us.
Right.
We don't have an option at that point. And I fear that whatever that calculated rate may be very difficult for a lot of our citizens to handle all at one time. So to me, taking a proactive approach gives us the opportunity to, if it does prove that we need an increase, to plan for how that is going to impact our community over time, instead of, hey, we have to do this in order to comply with the EPA, and here's another $20 a month to pay for it.
And that happened back in 2003. We had to go in when we did our last project, our last big water project. Karen, didn't we have to raise them in increment three different times in 3 different increments because it was significant? We had to do so in order to borrow the money.
Alderman Lee,
No, I'm all for it.
Alderman Cunningham,
No question.
Alderman Boggs.
No concerns with them doing that scope of work.
Okay. With that, I will read this bill. Bill number 2021-21, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to sign a utility rate study agreement between the City of Marshfield, Missouri and Great River Associates Incorporated.
Move to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Quinn.
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Cunningham.
Second reading. Bill number 2021-21, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to sign a utility rate study agreement between the City of Marshfield, Missouri and Great River Associates Incorporated.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Quinn.
Aye.
Boggs.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Cunningham.
Thank you very much. That takes us into new business. The first item on new business is the partial closure of Warren Avenue for the Magic Fourth. This is an event that's taken place every year that I've been around Marshfield anyway, and this is a normal closure of that avenue. Is there any questions or concerns? If not, I'll take a motion to approve, please.
I'll make a motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Next up is the banner program. Sam, do you want to kick that one off?
Sure. So if you guys have visited our website, you've probably seen the promotional videos. There was a company that came and approached us a few years ago called CGI Communications, and so they had reached back out on a couple different things. So they brought the idea up about a banner program. As you guys know, you guys have probably seen around the square and a little bit there on Jackson Street that when we rolled out our new branding, we rolled out with some banners. Now, obviously, it took a little bit of time to hang in the first time, and those are starting to get worn, and we really haven't been able to keep up with those just because it does take some time. We just don't have time to pour into that. And so I visited with CGI a few different times, and so I really felt like it was a good program and something that I could get behind and support. And so I reached out to Dwayne and I reached out to Casey and asked Dwayne if he would kind of look into this and kind of take this up and spearhead this and kind of look into it. And so I've asked him to come tonight and kind of talk about the program itself.
Well, like I said, it's going to be Casey and I on this because I think one of the biggest beneficiaries is going to be her clients in a lot of ways. So, but yeah, I mean, this is sort of a marketing and a promotional thing. It's going to be tied to the big picture that we're trying to do of, sending a message not only to our citizens, but to visitors who come in, that we've got these, we've got these banners out there that are sending the message. This is the City of Marshfield. We have these events, we have these businesses and the different types of announcements out there for them. And so, so it's something that both the City of Marshfield, I think businesses will benefit, as well as the community as a whole will have a benefit from this banner program. It falls in line with the community growth plan that Grow Marshfield, of course, is kind of spearheading as much. It comes under the auspices of beautification and streetscape and the downtown improvements, these type of things. We've talked about this before. I mean, when companies come in, if you're not taking care of your downtown, they're saying, is this how you take care of your downtown? Is this how you're going to take care of my business? So this banner program is just another way of enhancing our downtown that'll help there. Okay. As Sam said, I think this would have to, be a joint effort between the chamber and Grow and the city and some of our local businesses. So that's the positive part of this. If you want to go along with CGI, their option, get a little technical here, they would like a minimum of 25 polls. We've done a little bit of a survey. There's probably about 8 or 10 along Spur. So not only is there a high traffic area, but when the visitors come in and they see those are the first ones that they're going to see along Spur, we can probably put 3 or 4 along the 66, 76 section there in the middle of town, something along those. I'll let Casey talk a little bit about that. And then, of course, there is the square and that area, and then maybe something up and down Jackson, which could really use some beautification, some streetscaping and things like that. And this is just an idea. I think Jackson's probably down on the priority list at this point, but we'll look at those because there's, I think, a number of things that we want to do about Jackson.
we'll have to, whoever we go ahead with this, definitely we'll do a hold harmless agreement. We'll make sure that, everybody's taken care of, whoever's going to take on this thing, that, that they're going to have the right insurance and make sure that, all of the safety aspects of these banners and the holders, all that type of stuff are taken care of. So I'll make sure that is all taken care of. We need to make sure that we're coordinating with Webster Electric. And I've already had conversations with Tom Houston, general manager, about this. And he supports it, but with definite caveats. And so we started that because it will be on some of these electrical poles. And there are some safety aspects that you've got to do, that they've got to be a certain amount of distance from the electric line. So that's just sort of the technical part that I talked about. And depending upon how we do this, whether it becomes an agreement with like a company like CGI and the City of Marshfield, we'll have to execute that down the road. So, but that said, I think it's going to be a great program. I think, the city and businesses, go ahead. Casey.
So whenever I approached the Chamber Board about the program, they all thought that the banner program would be a really good way for businesses to advertise, and businesses would be on board with it. And then with the town events, I think that's the main thing, because people don't know what's happening. They're like, oh, this festival was that weekend. I had no idea. But if that's up there all year round, that the Cherry Blossom Festival is in April, then they'll know, hey, it's coming up again next year. And then whenever the tourists come into town, they'll know about our other festivals. They'll know that we have the fair and the 4th of July parade. So they'll know they can come back here. So I think the awareness is a big thing with the banners. And the banners could enhance the poles with artwork. It would just make the city pretty, the drive pretty, and create a visual impact.
And so one of the things that we've talked about with CGI and is that, some of the other communities are using local artists to come up with their banners. And so I'm sure you guys are familiar with Samantha Cox, has done a couple of murals in town and just been incredible, right? And so people could work with her, and it might be another way for her to express her art, right? And to be able to do that. And Casey's right, the event banners, what some of you may or may not know, you may not recognize it, but I'm sure some of you have. So Webster Electric used to be able to get them a banner, and they used to be able to hang it over the four-way stop. That caused a lot of issues for them because they did catch wind, and so they got a lot of blinking issues up there. And so they just came to a final point where they came to a determination where they just couldn't offer that anymore because of the issues it was causing. So they contacted me and said, hey, that it's just, if you can just help us spread the word, if somebody calls, we're not doing that anymore. We're just going to take the wires down. We're going to take everything down that we did that with. And so now really people don't have a way to do that. And so, we've looked at, we're currently looking into some other ways to advertise and possibly a community sign of some sort. But that's part of a much bigger conversation. So I think this would be a good way for, events and businesses to be able to get something out there.
And the way CGI handles this is they put up new banners every year. So as Sam was talking about, not only was there a safety issue with Webster Electric though, but sometimes the organization putting up the same banner every year, and they start getting a little tattered and things like that. And so, and I know there's probably a fiscal issue with each one of those, but like I said, the way CGI handles it, and whether somebody else does or we can make sure that's done, from that perspective, just to keep that appearance up there. So when we have visitors that come into town, they see these banners, and not only sending the message, businesses are taking advantage of it. Citizens got, a good idea, but it's just going to send a really nice message that we've got these really good banners out there. So, and they'll be changed, I said, we get to change, hopefully we will get to that process where they'll be changed out every year.
Yeah, and then so in 2026, it's the 100th year of the Route 66. So that could be something that we make the banners celebrate that year. So when people are coming through, they know, hey, Marshfield is on Route 66. They're excited about it, and when they come through town, they'll have that.
So depending on the size, so CGI, whenever they did that, I said on those videos, it was no cost to the city to put those together. And so what they did, if you watch those and then you watch all the after credits and everything, the sponsors at the end of that are actually who they paid for that. And so that's the same principle that they're using here. It's at a no cost to the city in order to be able to put these banners up. But on the back end, depending on the size of the banner, they're going to charge somewhere between $500 and $1,000 for the memberships for the advertising. And so, it is going to cost something to advertise. So, which brings on kind of a question that I know has been talked about a little bit is that something that can be done locally, right? And so, one of the things that we just kind of started kicking around today was, I wanted to get this in front of you. I wanted to come talk to you guys tonight in order to get this in front of you. To one, see if you were interested in getting and allowing those banners to go up for this purpose. And then two, to see if we wanted to go with a company like CGI that will come in and do all the marketing. They'll take care of going and visiting all the companies and doing all of that legwork. And basically what we get is basically, from what I understand, we'd be approving the banners or what can go on there and selecting where they go and who can have them. And so really not a lot of work on our end from that side of it. Or if we wanted to go more of a local standpoint and reach out and visit with the chamber board and see if we wanted to see if that's something that they might be willing to take on. And again, not involving the city staff or Webster Electric staff, but possibly contract out the hanging of those and use local vendors to buy it and to buy those from, and see if that's something that we could do more on a local level. Now, that being said, I don't want to speak for Casey because there's a lot of work that goes into that. And there's a lot of visiting that goes, there's a lot of marketing that goes into that, and then tracking and how, at what point is that too encumbersome for them to take on? And so I just want to get that in front of you tonight to get your guys' opinion on, is this something that the city's even interested in, or is it not?
Okay, I'll open the floor. Alderman Lee.
I think it's definitely worth exploring.
Alderman Cunningham.
Anything free, man.
Yeah, I think that's a good deal.
Alderman Boggs.
I would say that a company like that is probably fine to work with. I mean, that's in the scope of work that I do, and that's a lot of work for that kind of money. Because even if they got $1,000 a piece at 25, it's a lot of work for that. So, I mean, I don't know anybody locally that would be offended if they didn't have that. So it seems like a good company that's reputable. So I've seen stuff like that before. They do look nice.
Alderman Quinn.
When Dwayne was first telling me about this, I was picturing in my head these gaudy banners that would be all over the place, just looking terrible. And I was like, Dwayne, but no, these are decorative. They can be themed, and I mean, we can really decorate the town and still have something for. Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Casey, do you? I know we could just kind of start talking about this afternoon, but what are your thoughts as far as company versus right? I mean, what do you think? Is that worth a conversation for us to take to your board? What do you think?
I think it is. I think they would be interested in just seeing if we could do it on a local level.
Yep.
If we find out that it's not worth that to us, then that's fine. But I think they would like to at least consider that.
I personally have no issue with keeping money local. $1,000 here, $1,000 there. I have no issue with that. Board, is that okay that we get them a chance to pitch and then come back with something? Okay, so we'll table
The
this.
biggest issue is going to be the upfront costs. I mean, a
Okay.
company like CGI has been doing it. They're doing it over, 3,000 locations already, or 5,000? So thousands of locations already. So, that's what we'll just have to do to make sure that we do with locally, that the same standards we expect of CGI, I think we ought to expect of whoever does it locally.
Right.
And, because they were, telling us stories. You get a nice windstorm and one of those things comes down, or that,
Mhm.
you get 24 hours before they have to come out and replace it, and so I see Mr. Liability over here thinking right through it. And so, and that's the home harm, that's the kind of language that needs to go into the hold harmless agreement. So, but,
Okay,
so those are the ways, but yeah, I think, we figure out how to do it
So-
locally, that's fine, but
sorry.
that upfront cost, that upfront risk that is going to have to, be,
Right.
we'll have to bring down.
So when does the chamber meet again to discuss this?
We meet on July 1st, but we won't get in a big discussion about it because we will be talking about the parade all the time.
Obviously.
So probably the first Thursday of August.
Okay, so if we put this on an August agenda
Yes.
to discuss again and invite them back and see where we ended up on our local discussion and make a decision then?
And you were talking about local, are we gonna be like giving, opening up for bids for multiple different local companies and just whoever wins out on the bid, or how are we gonna determine?
So I think that's what I would like to go and visit with
Yeah.
Dwayne and Casey and the chamber board talk about what that looks like, right? Because the way that I look at that is they're probably going to have to bid out the actual banners themselves. They're gonna have to bid out the actual hangers themselves,
Mhm.
and they're gonna have to bid out the installation, right? And so it could be, this is how many we think that we're going to allow in this first group. What would you charge? What is the price? And actually take a formal bid on that and just see what that is. And that upfront cost, like Dwayne's talking about, okay, this is what it's going to cost us now. This is how much we're going to actually have to charge. And that's something they're going to have to determine.
So just for clarification, and this is for my own clarification, if we go with CGI, it's a contract with the city.
Mhm.
If we go local, the chamber's going to handle it?
That would be my preference. And I'll throw this out there a couple different ways. I don't know that is something that, this is just my opinion. I don't know that is something that I necessarily feel like the city should be out there marketing and selling those spaces. And if we make money or if we don't make money, it could be an umbrella under Grow. It could be an umbrella under.
Okay.
under
So it would
Yeah.
fit under either one of your.
There's got to be some type of, these are city streets, city rights of
Mhm.
way. And I got to jump in anytime, Paul. I mean, I'm pretty sure we've got to get your concurrence of some type, whether it's Grow or Chamber, instead of
Okay.
CGI in the city, I think it would be.
The city would have to give basically a cooperation type agreement that they would allow you to put the banners up.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
because I'm sure you guys have a responsibility of the safety aspect of this. And if we're going to allow this type of thing, because I talked to CGI about putting, some of the banners would actually be on the inside towards the sidewalk versus out on the, towards the road, because some of the poles are right close.
Right.
And you can't, because then you
Catch
have
a
trucks
load.
come by and, so these, that's all the details that I would write into the home harmless agreement to make sure that the city is covered. But
Okay.
whether it's agreement with the chamber and the city
Or all three of us,
or
right?
all three of us, yes, that's how it would be. But
Okay.
I said, I think, yeah, I'm glad you guys see the same. That if you've been to a lot of towns and a lot of, where they've got these banners, they're great. And we can control the amount too. And that's what I said, it doesn't have to be, banner on every single one either, but,
We use them all
put the
over
right
campus.
locations for our visitors and our businesses. And I think it's a great opportunity and events that we have. And, Marshfield's known for its events, not as a destination tourist spot, but it is for our events. And that these banners would be a great opportunity to help those events.
Okay.
Somebody gonna decide what's going on the banners? Keep an eye on that.
I think we get to approve the designs.
Who's gonna approve it? Them guys, whoever.
If the contract goes to CGI, then it will be the city that
Okay,
approves them. And then depending on how that contract forms, if it's local, will be whoever's handling the program will have the approval.
Do you have a concern or something like that?
no, you see signs around town.
Yeah.
We don't want them hanging.
Right.
Hanging up.
So,
Well,
All
a
right.
lot of them will have like no alcohol or non
Yeah.
adult type.
yeah.
Mhm.
So
You-
you want to be involved in it from that perspective, for sure.
And
We've got a
Correct.
quality of place issue,
Definitely.
and we have a lot to gain from that as well.
Right.
So we all of us have a lot to gain by making sure that we control the message at least somewhat. So
And we talked to even if we go with CGI, we talked to them about being able to control, and there being an application process of this is who's applying for it, and this is what they're going to put on it. And then there'd be some kind of selection committee or something that says yes or no. It may not have to be come through a formal board meeting, right? But dedicated people that would go look at that and go, yes, that conforms with what we would want on there, or no.
Or you could task the chamber and grow, and maybe we'll have just a couple small subcommittee of our board members, and then we would go take care of that process for you, something along. Of course, Sam would be part of that as well. And if there's something that, you know, somebody says, hey, I want to, and I want to talk to the, you know, they're going to come see you. So, but it could expedite the process that way. So,
Okay.
Don't have that detail yet, JC, but you know, we'll definitely make sure.
All right, we will put this in as a future agenda item for August. And you can get back with us then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next agenda item is the bypass equipment purchase for sewer mains and lift stations. Sam?
So I don't have any formal bids in front of you tonight, but as you guys know, we definitely have some I&I issues with our wastewater treatment plant and just our wastewater system. And so one of the big unknowns is how much is what the condition is of that main line going down to the plant. We've talked about this multiple times as you guys went out on your tour and in work sessions. One thing that we are not equipped to be able to actually know what the condition of that is. So we reached out with the help of our engineers to some companies that would come in and that are equipped with bypass pumps. They can basically plug off a manhole here and run lines on top of the ground and stick their pump in and bypass it down to the next manhole so that you can video that line, clean that line if necessary, and then basically pick up and do it again until you get down to the end of that. So I had kind of prepared myself that number was going to be somewhere in the $30,000 to $40,000 range for somebody to come in and be able to tell us what that section of line would cost to video and give us a condition on. It came in a little over $110,000 just for them to video that. Keep in mind that's no repairs. That is bypassing it and videoing it and cleaning it, meaning if there's roots in it, they would stick a cutter down in there. I just don't feel like that is, at this point, I just don't feel like that is the option that I would recommend the board to go with. I've visited with Richard and he was all set to come tonight. And I said, I really don't think that there's a reason for you to come. So, but he has reached out and he has found, so let me back up just a little bit. This pump that it would take in order to bypass this thing is not just a simple waste pump like what you would stick in for a water leak or anything else. I mean, it's capable of handling what a lift station would handle. We have talked about buying one of these for years and years and years, but the price tag of a new one, somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000 for this pump, just hasn't, because we are behind on equipment. It just hasn't reached the peak of our priority list. We have had to rent some in the past. We've rented one, I don't know, 3 or 4 times over my career here. And so it's not overly common, but when you need one, you have to have one. Richard's reached out and found a couple of used pumps in good condition that they rent out. We can actually purchase these pumps we purchased one of them for between $17,000 and $18,000. But what I'm actually talking to the board about tonight would be the authority to spend up to $30,000. So you've got the pump itself, then you've got the plugs that go into this thing. We do have plugs for other manholes, but we're not talking about a typical manhole. We're talking about 21, 28-inch plugs, very expensive. Obviously, we don't have them because we don't plug them off. And then the hose to be able to bypass from one manhole to another. The hoses are what are really expensive. Obviously, they have a flexible hose style and they have a rigid hose style. And so Richard this is kind of Richard's brainchild, and he's very adamant that he and his crews can do this, and that you know, by spending the $30,000, they can get up to the same outcome and have the equipment in the end of it to better equip us to handle other things in the future. We have 13 lift stations. Not all of them are plumbed to where you can just drop the pump in and bypass the lift station. However, we do have a few that are, And the rest of them can be plumbed that way. It's just not now. So the ones that are plumbed that way, you can basically pull up, you can drop this pump in there, bypass that lift station to where it goes from the wet well coming in into the force main going out. And if you were to lose pumps, it's another layer of protection for us versus having to take our tanker truck, which can pump out and hold 2,800 gallons or whatever it is, run to another manhole, dump it, come right back. And I mean, it's on our big lift stations, it's a chore to keep up with it if we have something go down. So like I said, Richard's very adamant that he says, that we can do it. Obviously, I don't feel comfortable spending the 110 plus in order to do it because I would have, it's kind of a catch-22. Could be that there's nothing wrong with that line. And so you spend $100,000 plus to know that there's nothing wrong with the line. It could be that the pipe is in very, very terrible shape. And within the first two manholes, we may know that it's not worth spending $100 and some $1,000 to video the rest of it. We need to figure out how we're going to just replace the line. Or maybe it's that we're going to try to slip line the pipe. I do feel like it's money well spent. I don't feel like it's money spent just for this project. I think that it is for other safety issues, other backup issues, maybe not safety issues, but backup issues. And I do think that it is a good expenditure. I ran and grabbed my budget book, just because obviously it's not a budgeted expense. It's not even in the growth area expense. It is an opportunity that has just presented itself that I think that we probably should take advantage of. So at the end of 2021, in the current operating budget, we had budgeted to have a cash balance of $907,000 and some change. So there is sufficient funds there to do this with, and that's what these funds are here for. This is kind of it's not an ongoing expense like an employee. I'm not asking you to tack on another $50,000 for an employee that's just going to go on in perpetuity. I feel like this is a good use of the funds, and I think that I think it may be a month or two before we can get to it, but I do think that it is something that if our utility superintendent is confident that they can do, I think that it's money well spent for them to do that.
So we have the equipment we need to do the surveillance on the line, to clean the line if we needed to.
I don't know on the cutter.
Okay.
We won't know until we can get it into the pipe, and we can't get it in the pipe because it's full of flow.
Right.
So we may have to purchase another cutter.
Okay.
That would be something that I don't know that we could catch it within this 30,000, but it'd be close.
Okay.
And so that may be something that we might have to come back at a future time, or that you guys might want to put I don't have a dollar amount on there, and I don't know if those of you that have tried to buy anything lately, they will not hold prices on anything.
No.
So you could always, if you all were open to doing so, you could approve the 30,000 for the bypass equipment, and then approve the purchase of a cutter, because once we get in there and open that,
You need
while
to
we have
cut
it
it
pumped
down.
down, we need to cut it. And so if we get it pumped down and then it's another 2 weeks before a meeting, it's fine, but I don't want to put you guys in a position where you're uncomfortable basically signing a blank check, because I don't know what that cost of that cutter would be. I don't even have a clue, because we have one, just don't know if it will work for that bigger pipe, because we never used it ever.
Right. So the way this is my opinion on this issue. This is $30,000 that we can use, not just for when we have something go down, but for every other section of pipe that we need to see into in the future of its useful life, right? This is $30,000 that used 3 times, more than covers the $100,000 bill that we may end up with for your pipe looks good, and they're gone. And now to go see the other 2 pipes that we can get out of this pump, hopefully it has that much useful life. In order to get to those, we're looking at another $200,000. So to me, that's the comparison. In order to do 3 pipes, we can spend $30,000 and maybe a little bit more for a cutter, or $300,000.
And on the financial end too, to make you feel better. I mean, I would obviously visit with Monica about what she felt comfortable taking out of, but in the CIP fund, I mean, again, I don't want to make it sound like we have too much money because we have so many projects and we're still finishing up on some, and this is what we're using for debt service. But I mean, we do have just a little over $1 million in there as well. And so I think that we're in a position where I think this really does make financial sense for us to take this on and do it ourselves.
Can we also use the COVID money if we needed to? Because that was for sewer.
No,
No.
because I'm asking to buy this now and you can't go retro.
Okay.
You have to have the funds and I'm not going to say that it wouldn't be if we had the funds sitting there.
I see.
We
Okay.
probably could.
Right.
But no.
Since we don't have them yet, we can't spend that on that.
We don't, right?
Okay.
And I definitely would not feel comfortable doing that.
Was
You
50
said,
covered with a cutter?
Oh, I think so.
you said that not all the lift stations are plumbed to do this.
To just drop this thing. Now, we can use it at every lift station. Don't get me wrong, we can
Okay.
use it at every lift station. Some of them are as simple as, it's not this simple, but some of them are as simple as basically pulling up there, plugging it in, plugging the plumbing in, plugging the electric in and turning the thing on. Some of them, we're gonna have to bypass to another manhole, if that makes sense. Some of them have a manhole plumbed there to where we can turn a valve. Typically, you don't have a valve at a lift station, but you can turn a valve, shut that off, and so that no more water goes into that, and we can it basically takes the place of the lift station while we're repairing that lift station.
But it's usable at every lift station we have.
The pump itself.
Some way.
The pump itself, yes, because the pump, basically what the pump does is it takes and it pulls, it intercepts what you would be sending to the lift station. And it basically pulls it into the pump and shoves it right back into another pipe, whether that's another force main or whether that is another manhole. So it basically just bypasses, that's where the bypass pump, it bypasses the lift station so that it does not have to go through the lift station. We have other pumps, but not anything that would be capable of pushing that much water.
And so I know everyone hates the term, this is unbudgeted. But this being my area that I work in a lot, let me set the groundwork like this, if you will. Unbudgeted means we didn't think of it a year ago when we put together a bunch of numbers on a document that all add up to what it needed to be. I don't expect that we will ever have a budget that is perfect to where we're going to think of everything, because if that's the case, we're not using critical thinking to make our management decisions. We are not changing with our community's needs. We are not addressing issues as they arise, right? If our budget works just like that, there's a lot of things we're missing more than likely. I do think with the way our budget is set up, we have sufficient funds to cover it. And it's maybe a bonus of our current employee issues. There's not as much of a need currently for the additional vehicles that are budgeted. So maybe that offsets.
You said we have a cutter, but it's not big enough.
When we bought some equipment, and I'll be careful because I don't know the details, but when we bought all of our equipment, we have cutters for the sizes of pipes that we have. We've never ran the cutter on the big line because it's so full. You can't run them at full flow. You can't run a cutter at full flow just because there's so much restriction in there. And so, again, that's the reason why we've never videoed this line. We have videos of every other line in town. Now, they may not be current. They may be 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. We have no video. We have no clue what the inside of this pipe looks like because we cannot shut the flow down. This is one that I was telling you guys about. We came in the dead of summer, it was a drought in the dead of summer, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and we tried to plug it off with our current equipment so that we could video it. And we didn't get halfway between one manhole to another before it started backing up and coming out where it's almost coming out of that manhole to where we got to a point where we were fearful that it would come up in other people's houses. So we cannot video the line the way that it is now.
So the cutter you think is just a bigger.
I don't know. It's got some age on it. It's never been used, but it's got some age on it. But I don't know. So there's different cutters for different type of pipe. This is clay tile, and so was this cutter bought for clay tile? Was this cutter bought for something else? I don't know. And so I would hate to tell you it's got some age on it, right? I would hate to tell you that the cutter works because we just never used it.
Do you think it has any mean, is it trade-in value? Is
No.
there any value to it whatsoever?
I really think it'll work, but I don't, but I would hate to sit here and tell you that it will. I mean, it's equipment, so it does break.
Absolutely.
I have a goofy question maybe, but like, have you guys ever done like a flow study to where like, so potentially it could be full of roots and that's why it's always full because of the restrictions in there, maybe?
So probably the opposite. It's probably always full of flow because there is a leak into it somewhere. So this runs along that creek. Basically, that big ditch from Banning, actually from up at Turtle Creek to where it goes underneath the interstate. We've never been able to video this thing, so we just don't know. But I can tell you that within 13 to 15 minutes of it raining, we have water at the plant. And a large amount of water at the plant. So what I can also tell you is that it doesn't have time to fill up other lift stations pump from, we have a scenario there where we have this lift station pumps into this one, pumps into this one 6 times. It's not ideal, but that's just the way, that's just kind of the cards we were dealt. There's not enough time for it to gather in this area and pump to here and pump to here, pump to here. It has to be relatively close to the plant.
So we're pretty sure there's I&I. Confident.
On the main
I'm pretty confident. So a few years ago, that pipe is actually exposed in the creek in a few places. It's got concrete poured over it, but the banks had eroded, and we actually found a damaged piece of it, and we had to go in and fix it. And so I could totally eat my words, and it's on recording, so I'm here. I could totally eat my words, but I really feel like we will find a major issue in that pipe. And our previous wastewater superintendent and our current one, our previous one was here for 35 plus years. He always said the same thing. He really figured there was, but there just wasn't a good way to get down there and video it.
How much money are you looking for a cutter potentially? I mean, are we talking 5, 10?
Yeah.
So 10 to be safe, just to.
I would say, yep. I would say, so, if you wanted to make absolutely sure and positive, I mean, you could approve up to 50. You could approve up to 45. Those bigger cutters, and they're really expensive, but I couldn't tell you. I should have priced it out before tonight, and I really didn't even think about it until we got in here tonight on the cutter.
I do think it's a great idea to spend half what it would cost for somebody else to come in, because at least you're going to know for sure versus something else. So
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously Richard's pretty confident in 30. We sat down, we talked about it, but I haven't even talked to him about we didn't even really discuss the cutter. He's like, well, I just hope if we find a bunch of roots, I hope that we can cut them. I'm just throwing that out there tonight that say that we throw that out there, and if we had everything in and we were ready to start this Monday, man, I sure hate to call a special meeting, or I'd hate to get you out and wait another 2 weeks and say, hey, we really need another $5,000-$10,000.
And we have the video equipment and the rail system to do all that.
Yep.
So it's just,
Yeah, we're very fortunate. We're ahead of the curve on some things, and we're way behind the curve on others, but we have a very good video equipment system.
can I make a motion that you approve up to 50,000?
Okay.
30 for the stuff that we're going to be using over and over again in the future anyway. So I think that's a great investment. And then for the cutter.
And up to 20 on the cutter.
Yep.
I'd second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next item is to approve the city administrator as authorized representative signer for the American Rescue Plan Act funding. This is the funding that Monica gave us an update on. I believe it was just the last meeting. We have to identify someone within our organization that is going to be the person they can contact and is responsible for this money. That person is best to be Sam. So we are looking for your approval. Sam, do you want to add anything to that? Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Liquor license renewals are in your packet. Are there any questions on these? We have 4 new ones.
They're renewals, right?
Renewals.
Yeah.
If no questions for Karen and Linda, I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So I've been making a list of future agenda items, so hold on to your hat. We will have the banner program come back in August. We will have the leaf dump, specifically staffing, hours of operations, fees, and guidelines for use. And I'm going to add controls onto that to come back soon, hopefully the next meeting. I'll go soon. We have, I wrote down the warrant study with Mel. How far out is that?
To be honest, I don't know.
Okay, we'll double check on that.
No, I think it just clicked. I don't think we can do that warrant study until Elm Street goes in, because they have to have actual traffic counts.
I gotta have actual
Yep.
traffic.
So that
Okay.
that one's off until that project goes in.
So I'll take that off my future agenda items, and that is a suspended item. The transportation plan that was presented to us tonight, that needs to come back to us. The space needs analysis with the actual designer here to explain everything is coming back to us next meeting. We anticipate having a budget calendar ready for review and discussion in the next meeting. We will be presenting a fee schedule, meaning the fees that already exist. And at this point, we will only be looking for input from the board as staff continue to work on what fees they may like to change. It's good for us to make any of those changes before we go into budget, because that allows us to calculate our revenue in a more accurate manner. We have 9 variances, so hold on to your hat with those. We have a capacity study that will be coming back. I do not believe that will be the first meeting in July. I believe that'll be the second meeting in July. So we're targeting July 22nd on that. It's going to be put on the agenda, whether or not we have it, just as a placeholder, and we will continue to carry it from July 22nd on until that thing gets delivered to us. We have budget goal setting. I'm going to target that for the August 12th meeting. I'd like you to have the information from the capacity study, I hope, and also from the space needs analysis before we go into that goal setting agenda. So that is on there. I asked Sam earlier in the meeting for the capital asset plan or growth area budget review, just so that we have an idea of what's still hanging out there, where we are on things, and what we think we're going to get done this year. And the last item that I have on here is our economic development policy. We would like to schedule a work session on this to where we can just more informally hold discussion on various types of policy that we could implement and what its impact would be on our community. We are a long ways off still from getting a formal policy, but we need input. We need to know appetite. We need to know your ideas. And we also want the opportunity to bring our financial advisor in to educate all of us on what the various tools are we have in the toolbox and how they can apply to our community. So with that, do you have any future agenda items?
Well, I mean, it seems like a smaller issue, but many people complain about the unsolicited advertising in the driveway every week. You know what I mean? I don't know if we can do anything about it. I don't know, but
That has been brought to this, well, not this board, but boards
Yeah.
prior. That topic has been discussed numerous times.
what's been the conclusion?
It's never been brought up to me. I've never researched it.
When Chuck was here, Moons, I don't know how long that's been, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sam, but by banning them from throwing those in your driveway, and I agree with you, it absolutely infuriates me. It infringed upon their freedom of press, correct?
Off the cuff, I believe that that's what it was.
And
So
That makes sense to me. If-
the
if
only
Doug looked at it,
recourse
yeah.
was, and I may be wrong on this, but I believe Chuck did some research and found the main office. And there was just a
was
rogue
reporting that-
influx of calls, you better quit this. I don't want to see this. And it did go away for a
A little
while.
bit.
It's not as, I mean, I would have 5 and 6 in my drive a
Mhm.
week. Now I just get 1. So it's better. But that was Chuck's
That
take on it.
sounds right. I've never researched that topic, but I mean, it would seem like that would be a reasonable interpretation of that. That it would, yeah. I don't know that you could shut it down. I think you tell people just throw them away.
Is that something you want further discussion on?
If we can confirm what the ruling was, that would be great.
Yeah. If anything, I'll just call Chuck and see if he's got what he did before.
Yeah.
Talking about rep level?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I can call.
He
him
used to
too.
be our city attorney.
Well, I mean, if you know him,
Yeah.
just, yeah, you
Okay.
feel free, see what he feels.
So we'll put it on there, and if you find that your concerns are taken care of, just notify
Will
the
do.
group and we'll remove it from the agenda.
Thank you.
Any other future agenda items?
Well, I got one little one, and Sam said he's gonna talk to me about it, but Banning Court. I got a call on it, and it's washing out. And I believe that's the only city street that we have that's not paved.
Okay.
While they're paving Banning, how much trouble is it to make one of those swipe through there? I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
Okay.
I'd hate to call them back in next year for just, cost us more. That's just something.
We'll put it on the agenda, and once staff has some information on it, we'll get it presented. Maybe it can even come in with the rest of the
Yeah,
paving projects.
I could talk about it tonight, but with it not being on the agenda, I better not. So.
Correct.
Yes, and we can have a side conversation about it, but yes.
Okay. Anything else? With that, we will move to closed session. Pursuant to section 610-021.1 of the revised statutes of the state of Missouri pertaining to legal actions or causes of litigation, I need a motion to enter closed session.
Make a motion to go to closed session?
Roll call vote, please.
Quinn,
Aye.
Bob's, Lee.
Aye.
Cunningham.
Okay, and we'll wait just a minute.